How fast does Steve mine? That's a question that has been on my mind for some unknown reason for the past 8 days, as of August 4th, 2025, which is when I'm writing the script. And I decided to, well, I don't know, answer it for no other reason. The main thing I wanted to know was, is his mining speed realistic? As in, could a regular human mine or get his speed? The first answer that most people would say is, well, no. Steve can mine quite fast, usually taking only seconds, or even instantly if using enchantments. But the time in real world versus in Minecraft is different, so I wanted to convert it to a real world 24-hour system in order to have a proper comparison. There are a few things to take into account, that being the tool of choice, time itself, and the volume of a single block. Those are the three main factors that we will be focusing on. There are probably more minor things, but quite frankly, I'm too stupid to take those other things into consideration for this. First thing we will do is a basic conversion of Minecraft time to a real 24-hour system. According to, basically, all sources, a single Minecraft day is 20 minutes, or 0.33 hours. In a regular day, there is 24 hours, or 1,440 minutes. This means that time as we know it in the real world is 72 times slower than in Minecraft. With this in mind, we now know that 1 second in Minecraft is 72 seconds in the real world. But that still does not answer the question of, is Steve's mining speed realistic? Now, mining speed is dictated by several different things. These include, but may not be limited to, the tool being used and if it corresponds to the material being mined, enchantments, status effects, whether or not Steve is submerged in water, whether or not Steve has direct contact with any type of surface, and what the tool is made of. Since in the real world enchantments and stat effects are not quite real, we are going to throw that out. We are also going to ignore the submergence and flight mining penalties, since I'm going to assume most mining happens out of water, and I know humans don't fly, at least I don't think so. We will also ignore the tool to block material correspondence penalties, because I assume most people in the real world use correct tool to complete tasks. Exceptions do exist, but whatever. As for the last factor being the tool, we are going to use iron, because in the real world, material does not dictate your digging or mining speed, so you just use what's most durable, and iron is the most durable option out of the materials in Minecraft that exist in real life. And quick note, yes, diamonds are durable, but only to scratching, not impact, which is why they're used for mining drill bits and not pickaxes. Now, with all that out of the way, I want to find the following: the time it takes to break stone, the time it takes to break obsidian, the time it takes to dig sand, and the time it takes to dig dirt. After inputting some stuff into the calculator, we then find that Steve, while using the correct tool made of iron, can mine a stone block in 0.4 seconds, a block of obsidian in 12.5 seconds, and can dig both a block of dirt and sand in 0.15 seconds. Now, to convert this to real world time, we slow everything down by 72, meaning that Steve, while using the correct tool, he can mine a stone block in 28.8 seconds, a block of obsidian in 900 seconds, or 15 minutes, and a block of dirt and sand in 10.8 seconds. But we're not done. We have found out how long it takes for him to mine one block, but we don't know how big a block is. To find out how big a block is, we will estimate Steve's height and use it as a comparison to make an educated guess for the length, width, and height of a block. First off, I'm going to ignore the 1 metered standard that everybody uses. Instead, I'm going to try to make a quote-unquote accurate estimate. Now, the player model height is debated a bit. Some say he's 1.62 blocks tall, others say 1.75 blocks tall, some say 1.8 blocks tall, and a few even say that he's 1.82 blocks tall. Because all of these guesses are kind of everywhere, I'm just going to try to find the answer myself. I was initially going to count the pixels of the player model and use that as a starting point, but I changed my mind after actually counting them. I found that the player model is 32 pixels tall, which is identical to the height of 2 blocks, but everybody agrees that Steve is not 2 blocks tall, so 1 pixel on a block and 1 pixel on the player model is not the same. So instead I'm going to align a player in game next to 2 blocks and count how many pixels it takes until the block and the player model's head align. So I quickly launched Minecraft and created a random world and joined in. Then I tried to perfectly look straight, but I was not able to reach exactly 0.0. I was only able to go around to 0.2 and negative 0.1 when moving the mouse up and down by a single pixel, so I picked negative 0.1 because it's closer to 0 than 0.2, meaning it would be more accurate. So I started counting, and then I noticed that it looked like the player model was exactly 2 pixels shorter than 2 blocks. Here, let me zoom in a bit. Oh, okay, a bit more. Okay, good. This means that the player model is 30 pixels tall. Since one block is 16 pixels tall, Steve is 1 block and 14 pixels tall, or in purely blocks, he is 1.875 blocks tall. So while the player model may have a different hitbox that may be smaller, I'm going to use the visual size because sometimes hitbox in games make no sense, either being bigger or smaller or just not being in sync with the visual. So while some estimates go with 1.62 blocks tall, 1.75 blocks tall, 1.80 blocks tall, and 1.82 blocks tall, I'm going to go with 1.875 blocks tall because that's what I calculated and I trust myself, kinda. First off, I'm not saying that, it's the correct answer and everything else is wrong, because maybe the previous calculation of the hitbox, or maybe I made a mistake, because of course I'm human, but mostly stupid. So yeah, I just wanted to state that before someone gets the wrong idea. Anyhow, back to the main question of how big one block is, we will now find the average size of a human. Now, height can differ depending on age, and since Steve is pixelated, it's not quite easy to definitively estimate his age. And to be honest, I'm not good at guessing age based off appearance to begin with. So, instead I'm going to make an assumption based off Steve's strength. First note, I'm not actually going to make a scientific assumption on Steve's strength because Steve is a video game character. In this game, you can pick up lots of heavy shit. And other people have managed to fully dissect how much Steve can carry in vanilla Minecraft, so we know he's strong. How is this relevant? Well, we can assume Steve is at his peak physical condition, and using that, we can use the age range, which males typically reach peak physical strength. The most commonly given ages are 26 for weightlifting and 35 to 37 for powerlifting. Instead of using either one or the other, I'm just going to use the midpoint of both, which is 31.5, but for simplicity's sake, I'm going to round it up to 32. Now that we have an estimate for his age, we can now find what height a 32-year-old male is. Now, the height ranges from 164 centimeters to 190 centimeters, but most sources state that the average is around 172 to 180 centimeters. So I will once again use the midpoint being 176 and use this as the estimated height. So we know that Steve would be 176 centimeters and that he is 1.875 blocks tall. So by dividing 176 by 1.875, we would get 93.8667, which we will round up to 93.87. For simplicity's sake, which is close to 1 meter but would round down to 90 and not up to 100 centimeters. Since these are 3D cubes, the length, width, and height are all the same, which means that one block has a volume of 827,142.7236 centimeters cube, which we will once again round for simplicity's sake, meaning that one block is around 827,142.7 centimeters cube. Now we know how much one block is, but we are not done. Now we need to compare Steve's actual mining speed to that of a real person. Our current stats are on the screen. I'm not going to read them because big numbers and me lazy, so you're going to want to switch off your game and look at it if you actually want to see the numbers or not. I was initially hoping to find out how long it would take a real human, but it's not a piece of information that people really care much about, so there's not much documentation, that I could find at least, on it. And quite frankly, I don't think any human could ever rip through stone that fast. But I think an excavator could beat Steve in digging dirt and sand. But I'm not sure about mining stone though, since I'm not sure if excavators are capable of mining solid stone. Rubble, probably, but solid stone, I'm not sure. So, on a final note, the conclusion as to how fast Steve digs and mines is very, very fast. An average human with a simple handheld tool, such as a pickaxe or a shovel, could not do that. But an excavator could probably beat Steve in the time it takes to mine one block worth of sand and or dirt. So, once again, no, Steve does not mine in a speed akin to that of a human, even if we were to convert Minecraft time to real-world time, which is an answer that surprises absolutely nobody. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, even if only a little. Bye.